Or are you just laughing? It's entertaining. Okay.
I've definitely stumbled into some successes before, I think. I've brought this up on panels in the past. Forgive me if you were in another panel where I talked about this, but we did a Godzilla promotion where it was a retailer promotion where you could have, if you ordered 500 copies, then Godzilla would smash your store. And it was a massive success, but that basically sprung out of a conversation where we were just talking about Godzilla and the potential it had at retail. And basically, the conversation was like, that'd be so cool if we would just smash their stores. And it was like, dude, that's a great idea. And anyway, anecdotally, that was sort of an accident.
How many covers did you do?
Over 100 eventually.
Who was the artist on that?
Matt Frank.
Does he talk to you?
Yeah.
Does he talk to you still?
Yeah, enthusiastically, believe it or not.
How many covers? What was the time frame that he had to do those 120 covers in?
We actually print overseas, so it was super tight. You had 2 weeks to do it. But we actually had other guys jump in and do it, ink some of them and color, but it was mostly one guy. Anyway.
You know, he's like waking up in the middle of the night with like Godzilla's dreams.
I think he's into it though, so it's okay.
Different strokes.
So I know you all have budgets that are behind you. So what are your top shoestring, no dollar PR and marketing strategies?
Okay, this is now we're getting into the meat of the stuff.
This guy thinks that we have budgets.
Good point.
Sorry, go for it, Val.
Well, obviously you all know that marketing and PR is all about relationships. You go to shows like this, you press the flesh, you foster these relationships, you check in with guys all the time, you email them, and you try to email and have conversations that are not always you pitching them. So when you develop these relationships, it's easier for when you want to ask them a favor, or if you want to ask them, hey, I've got this coming up, can you do me a solid and do an interview with the creator? They're more likely to do stuff like that for you if they like you. If they don't like you, you will not get your email returned. One of the other things I like to do is offer giveaways. If we can work with a website or an outlet and say, hey, I'll give a signed copy of this book through your site, and we can co-promote it or cross-promote it through our social media and other ways, and just to make sure that we all win in the end. In the end, they want the hits and you want the coverage. And you also want to show the creator that this is what you're doing for them, and this is how the word is getting out about their project. But I'll let these guys go on. I'm sure I have more ideas.
Actually, I mean, relationships are a good point. A lot of, you can look at traditional publicity and traditional sort of PR relationships that you build with people in the media, which, sometimes, for people like yourselves who maybe aren't working in comics professionally at this point, you can really do through Twitter. I will tell you this though, if you're an artist and you friend someone on Facebook who works in comics professionally, please don't post any links on their wall to your work. A message is cool, but that is really one of the fastest ways to really turn someone off. I think it's understanding sort of what those boundaries are and sort of how to kind of approach things, just kind of tactfully. But I will say this, one example I think that is great of how to really have success in building relationships. We have a friend by the name of Sam Humphries. Do you guys know who that is? He's currently writing some books for Marvel. Prior to that, he originally got to know all of us through a career working for MySpace, back before they were the abandoned strip mall of the internet. He was actually
the new Friendster.
Yeah, exactly. I hope Justin Timberlake isn't mad at me for saying that. But anyway, he really did a great job of building relationships when he was at MySpace, and what he did really well, though, was continuing to cultivate those relationships after he left. He knew that he wanted to stay in comics professionally. He would find ways to get himself to conventions. He would find ways to be around all of these people that he had built like genuine friendships with. And then he did the same in the retail community. And he had a couple books. One was self-published that eventually went to Image. Another was a series called Sacrifice that he's been self-publishing that's been wildly successful that actually we're now collecting at Dark Horse. And what he did was he just basically really worked on building relationships with the retailers themselves. And frankly, one thing you learn about comics retail is that there's not a lot of money in this business, to be frank. I mean, you know, the guys who are running stores, and I can say this as someone who once had one myself, the guys who are running these stores are doing it because they love it. None of these guys had business degrees. Half the time they're ordering with their hearts as much as their wallets. And if you can really take the time, if you're self-publishing and you want to have success at retail, build these relationships with these retailers. And, you know, try and promote, like if you've got retailers in your area, start there. And a lot of these guys know each other. And a lot of these guys will say, hey, you know, this person that I know is a customer in my store. He's self-publishing this series, you should check it out. And before you know it, you can actually get your book into a good number of stores and really get these guys behind you. And I think that really, again, in marketing and PR, at the root of it, relationships are 100% across the board, whether you're talking about marketing to your customers, your relationship with your customers, via the social media, or even just in your advertising, your publicity relationships, and your relationship with your retailers. All of those things are equally important and will equally get you on the right path to success.
I have a quick follow-up to that too. I've told this story before too, but in terms of relationships with retailers, that nothing speaks louder than a consignment situation. And then let me explain. So I worked at a comic shop in 1993 to 95 when I first started working for Dark Horse, actually. And a guy came into the shop that I was managing and said, hey, I self-published this book and I want to put it, can I give you a bunch of copies and have you sell them, and I'll come back like once every few weeks and see how many sold, and you know, you can pay me for them. And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. And you know, he sold a few here and there, but like that guy, it was Brett from Top Shelf, I've told him. So that was the beginning of Top Shelf. He literally was walking into are you guys familiar with the publisher Top Shelf? He was walking into comic shops, giving them a stack of books and letting them sell them for free, basically. And just relentless, just beating the pavement. So and I don't think, even in this era of social networking and digital and all this exciting stuff, there's really no replacing that sort of grassroots. You know, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm exhausted, but you know what I mean. Anyway, it worked out for him.
You know, one last thing I'd say on that. You know, to your point, you were talking about marketing on a shoestring budget. I remember my father once told me something when I was growing up about how in gambling in life, the only way you ever win is when you can afford to lose. So you have to kind of go into it knowing like, there's a good chance that you're probably not going to see a return on everything immediately. But ultimately, like the only way you can really be successful is to just continue putting it out there and continue, you know, I mean, obviously like if something's just not working after a certain amount of time, you don't want to keep, you know, pouring money into it endlessly. But, you know, try different things. Lose a little money here and there. Try some advertising if you want to. You know, try social media. You know, try reaching out to traditional media. Just sort of make sure you kind of give everything a shot before you discount something as a failure.
I mean, the great thing about marketing comics is, you know, the market is fairly defined for you. You know, the comic book fans, you know, are really active online. I mean, you just look at, you know, if you look at Kickstarter, the different categories, like over a period of like 3 or 4 weeks, you'll notice like the ones that are like super successful, the ones that are killing it are the comic book ones, and they're the ones that are promoted from all the news sources. So, you know, the market's there. So you don't really have to do a lot of market research or anything like that. You know, you can pretty much find the market. So it's very accessible. So just trying to activate those people and getting them to, you know, to become customers of yours, you know, is the key. And just, you know, a lot of that's just getting attention. One of my favorite stories that I think about, which is a little weird, but whatever, I'm going to tell you, is so there's this guy in the student protest movement in the 60s, a guy named Abbie Hoffman. And so he wanted to protest greed. And so he noticed that the New York Stock Exchange like was open, that you could throw stuff on the floor. And so he went out and he begged for money for $1 bills all day long. So he got 100 $1 bills and spent all day begging. got $101 bills. And he went on the free tour the next day, and he threw the $101 bills on the stock exchange floor and stopped it for the first time in 100 years for 15 full minutes because everyone was picking up the money. And it became an international story. And so when I think about things that I want to do to get attention, I think about, okay, what is, and things that don't cost any money. It's like, okay, what is my thing that's going to get international attention that's really just me borrowing $100 from people on the street that's going to cause an international incident? So you know, that's a weird story, but hey, you know,
What are you advocating here, Jeff?
I'm not advocating anything. Revolution. But, you know, but seriously, like what can you do with the least amount of money and resources and have the biggest impact? And so, for instance, when I was at Boom, we had a book called Salem, and some pagans read the solicit text, and they thought that we were going to come out with a book that was promoting, you know, witchcraft burning, and so I got some really nasty emails, and so then I had the creators write a really funny open letter to concerned pagans about the thing, and we sent it out as a press release, and it got a lot of attention. Let's see, what are some of the other funny things? Oh, my buddy Eric Reynolds at Fantagraphics didn't like the variant covers for the Muppets books that we did when I was at Boom.